Good evening and welcome to Zion's Banner. Don't know who's in the house tonight. Oh, there we go. I did a little video previously that you may have seen, and just want to let you know there's some exciting changes happening. I've gotten a hold of some new software. Now, I've had an exciting week. I was on David Wood's program. And so it was really, really excellent being on his program, and we picked up some more subscribers. And David Wood had a program called eCam, which really made things more active and looked better. And I was really impressed with this program, but it only works on a Mac, and I'm a PC kind of guy. And so I searched and I found an equivalent to eCam, and I've got a test run or a test drive version of it. And so my plan Thursday, if it works, is to go ahead and run it live broadcast as a test drive of this program. And for those who do support us through Patreon, that's one of the places your Patreon money actually goes, is to try and improve the broadcast. I'm not saying anything. There are tons of people that support us through Chosen People, but there is no account in Chosen People for getting software in order to do this kind of work. And so Patreon does allow me to do some things I can't do under Chosen People, but I really, really appreciate my place in Chosen People, and they allow me to do things that Patreon doesn't allow me to do. So it's kind of a both and so I'm so excited. A big shout out to Steve. I got just wanted to give a shout out there because Steve's one of those Chosen People supporters, and he tunes in, and that's really exciting to me because he gets to see some of what I do, and a lot of people don't. And so I am really excited about that. And so that's Thursday. It'll be at the same time, but it'll be a live broadcast. If this indeed works. If not, I'll still have to run it through OBS. It's a test drive version of the program. So it's kind of like a beta, and I can go to the full version, but I want to really try it. And so I am so excited to go ahead and get things going and get things started with everybody. And there are folks already here, and that is so great. So I'm going to give a big wave out to folks because I am thrilled to see everybody. And I have to admit, one of the ladies from Hillside has started to watch, and she said, don't spend too much time typing because I'm not the best typist in the world, and it takes things away. So I'm going to do a little less typing, but I am going to do some cool emoticon stuff. So we're going to get into the PowerPoint tonight. Now there's going to be some screen switching. I actually went to the Karaites station that was recommended to me. And we're going to see a Karaites broadcast and talk a little bit about how it's different from the usual Rabbi Singer stuff. Look at his arguments, and if nothing else, you're going to get some Hebrew grammar tonight. I even did some work with Canvas and Logos, so you've got the cool diagrams. They are not in the PowerPoint, but I can make them available. I will put that up if people are interested. You can have these cool graphics of some sentence structure in Hebrew with the English there, kind of pointing out what's what. So I'm going to go ahead and get this set up. We're going to play the clips separately. But before we do, you do need to know something about the Karaites. And this is why this broadcast is a little different. The Karaites were a sect of Judaism that were founded by Anon ben David. Now, he was a little different. He was he really did not like the oral law. So he kind of came up with his own oral law, borrowing principles and things from the oral law, and came up with his own. So they don't review the oral law binding the same way. They view their oral law as kind of binding. Also, you're going to hear a really funny dialect of Hebrew. It's actually bothersome to my ears. But in those places where Hebrew had contact with Arabic, there is a wa sound instead of a va sound. You're going to hear this if Arabic speakers sometimes try to speak in Hebrew. The vav is a va sound. Um, there are even some Hebrew teachers, I'm really disappointed, from sound theological seminaries that are assuming that this wa sound, which is Arabic influenced, is the original sound in Hebrew. I tend to doubt it. Usually the purest dialect of Hebrew is considered the Sephardic dialect, and that's what I've learned in both seminary and Hebrew school. And believe you me, my Hebrew professor was no slouch. You're going to hear this irritating sort of dialect, so I'm going to warn you, it might be a little grating on the ears. Um, what is interesting about Anon Ben David, who founded this, is he borrowed the recognition of Jesus as a prophet of the followers of Christianity, and Muhammad is a prophet to the followers of Islam, in order to kind of garner support for himself. And so this is really kind of strange. Now, if you wonder where I get this, it's from the PowerPoint, which I'm going to go ahead and put up. This has been sitting here for a few minutes, and I didn't think I was going to go to the PowerPoint first, but I am going to go to the PowerPoint. I'm going to switch that on a little bit here. And just so that you know, again, why do I go ahead and stick the footnotes in here? Well, one, it gives you guys other resources, but two, it lets you know where I get some of my material. I really believe that it is good that you see and that the others that watch these videos see scholarship going on, because what you see from the other side is a lack of scholarship. And so I'm really interested that, there's research being done here. These are, it doesn't mean I can never be wrong, but it means it's been studied. And you see these guys making all sorts of claims all the time, especially in certain camps. And you see guys like Singer rely on his knowledge of Hebrew, but you're going to see that scholarship really is important. Um, a special shout out to Jesse Camping. Thanks for the positive comments about some of the videos that you've seen. Rationality Rules was one I did a while ago, and I really didn't know how it turned out. So that's just a little shout out. All you guys are wonderful. But I've gotten comments from some folks that just weren't a part of things before, that are new to us. And so I'm just really excited about that. Our community's gotten a little bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and put this first clip on here. Just be ready for the Arabic sound to the Hebrew. Now that might not bother you as much, but goodness gracious, I had recitation drilled into my head. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this on, and I'm going to let you listen to him, and then we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. Let me know if you're not hearing it. I did not embed the clips in the PowerPoint this time because I want to get used to non-embedding them, especially with the switch to the new program that we're going to be doing. I need to get that skill down.
Or anyone who believes in the Greek will say, well, you got to explain Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. That's a go-to. It's an automatic. It's understandable. Let us create man in our image. Now the Jews, Israel, will say he is addressing the angels. And the Christian, or the Messianic, will say, nonsense. No. Sorry, Jew. No, he's not speaking to the angels. He's speaking to his divine Son. You just don't want to see it. And we say, okay, well, what does the next verse say? Let's see who created. Verse 27, the next verse, what does it say? Again, don't believe me. Open your Bible and read verse 27. What it says there very clearly. So God, Elohim, created man in his image. Notice the singular. In his image. In the image of God, he created him.
Okay, we just saw clip one. I'm going to shift this over a little bit here and hope it shifts for you. We just saw clip one. Now, it was really hard because he was kind of like I was trying to like separate the bullets in a stream from a submachine gun. And so that was a little difficult. Because he tends to hit some of the same points and he kind of staccato boom, 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 boom. You haven't heard any of the Hebrew yet, too, with the funny pronunciation. But let's look at his point here. First of all, he has straightened this out as Jesus' claim, God's claim. Now, that doesn't show in the first video because he wants to deal with what he feels is a inappropriate comment being made by those who are messianic. Now, notice the way he deals with the thing with the Jews, where he says, well, the Jews will claim. Again, he's Karaite. So he's dealing with the rabbinical Jews, and he doesn't like them either. So you have to understand that Karaites don't necessarily go by what rabbinical Jews say either. They're kind of a thing unto themselves. They've always been a very small minority, but one of the great missionaries was David Barron, who wrote a commentary on Isaiah 53, and he specifically went and witnessed to the Karaites. There are some Karaite communities still existing today, just like there are some Samaritan communities still existing today. They're not large. Rabbinical Judaism really kind of squashed everything else, but some of these communities managed to sort of survive. And so they're around. And he's going to go and attack the Greek Jesus and what he's claiming later in the video. But I want to go ahead and deal with this, okay? He's very big on one. And so Jesus is going to claim authority, and he's going to have a problem with it. I'm going to see if I can get this, okay? Because, we're jumping around here a little. I'm sorry about that. He's going to have some problems with Jesus's claims to deity. And so I kind of jumped where Jesus's deity kind of really bothers him. One of the problems that he's going to have is the claim that authority has been given to him to give eternal life. And so I've stuck that up there. And you can see the picture changing just a little bit as I get to it. And there's the Greek, okay? I'm hoping with this new program that the cursor will be a little bit more visible. Kathos, edokas, alto, exthusion, passes, sarkas, given authority over all flesh, hina pan, in order that all, and so you have the Greek there. And the claim of God giving him authority over all flesh is going to be problematic. I just want to point out that Jesus isn't claiming anything for himself that you don't find in the Hebrew Scriptures. Remember, he's going to camp out on the Hebrew Scriptures. I put Daniel 7:13 and 14 up there just to let you know. What does Messiah receive from the Ancient of Days? Now, the way I understand this passage is that one like the Son of Man is Jesus. That was one of Jesus' favorite titles for himself. Coming with the clouds of heaven, and he came to the Ancient of Days. This is one of the few places where you see what would be called a theophany of the Father. Generally, it's argued that the Father is not visible. There's no theophany. There's no appearance of the Father. There's always the Son appearing. This would be a clear exception, the Ancient of Days being the Father, and they brought him near to him, and he was given dominion and glory and a kingdom. Whose glory is being shared? Over all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not pass away, and his kingdom is one which shall not be destroyed. Now, Jesus is claiming exactly what Daniel claims for him. Okay, now we'll get to the one part in just a second or two, and we'll deal with that. And so I just kind of wanted to deal with that thing. He's arguing essentially something. Let me go to it. He's arguing that the Genesis section is not allowable. And so as I'm looking at these, I'd almost like to reorder them. It was hard because of the way he structured the arguments. So if you're seeing the screen change a little, it's just because I'm trying to get to some things. His arguments overlapped, and it was really difficult to go ahead and deal with those arguments because they were so overlapping. But when Jesus claims to have authority over all flesh, he's not claiming anything that Daniel 7:13 and 14 don't give him. To him, by the ancients of day, was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. So Jesus is not claiming anything outside of messianic prophecy. Now, the second half of this guy's video deals with the messianic prophecies that quote-unquote Jews have always accepted, because as a Karaite, he's going to argue that some messianic prophecies that rabbinical Jews and we would accept aren't necessarily what he would accept. At least I think that's where he's going to go. And I would be surprised if he doesn't go there. Or he will argue that he accepts the same prophecies the rabbis do, but doesn't accept the reason. But he would have a hard time accepting some of those prophecies apart from some sort of appeal outside of the scriptures. How do I put that? He would have a hard, I would be surprised if he would accept everything the rabbis accept. That'll be in the future. I just wanted to deal with this. Okay? One of his arguments will be that God doesn't share his glory with another. And so in the context, he will argue, or he would argue, let's just say he would argue, I've heard this guy argue, that God won't share his glory with another. So I stuck up the verse that he would be tempted to go to. Okay? And he would be tempted, to go to Isaiah. And I have the verse there. I'm trying to see if you can see it. For my sake, I will do it, that my name should not be profaned. I will not give my glory to another. He's really going from Isaiah 48. The verse should be in there, but he's pulling it out of context. And so what I did was I created a canvas because another what? See, folks, when you see something like that, I will not share my glory with another. The question you've got to ask is, another what? Okay, you have an adjective, but where's the noun that it's modifying? And see, that's why I stuck that up there. I don't know if you could see it, but the first box has le'achar, from the looks of it. And it's with another or to another, and it's an adjective in the Hebrew. Adjectives modify nouns. So what now? Another what? This is what's called an ellipsis, where part of a sentence is missing. One of the examples in Greek of an ellipsis is the formula for baptism given in Matthew 28:19 and 20, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. But the baptizing isn't there all three times. You have baptizing, and then you have three objects. And what you have is an ellipsis. This is an ellipsis. It assumes another something. The context gives us what's going on here. And I believe he's dealing with Isaiah 48:16, but he ignores the context. The context is Isaiah 48:5 and that whole section of scripture. So he's proof texting, folks. Lest you should say, my idol has done them and my carved image has commanded them. Now let's look at it. For my own sake I will do it, as opposed to someone saying, my idol did this for me, my carved image did this for me. For my own sake I will do it, that my name should not be profaned. It's in contrast to this idolatrous view. And God's saying, you might be tempted to say, because Israel's involved with idolatry here, that my idol did it for me. No, I will do this for my own sake, that my name will not be profaned. I will not share my glory with another. Another what? Another false god. So when people pull the Isaiah 48:16, one context to another has to refer to a noun in the context. The idea is another false god. But we're not claiming Jesus is another god. And so this argument really doesn't hold water. Jesus isn't saying God shares his glory with another. He says he is saying that him and God share the same glory. God isn't sharing it. It's a possession that they both have. They both share the same glory because they're both deity. God isn't sharing his glory with another deity. So that is not a problem. Let's go and listen to clip 2. Let me pull that up. I'm going to go back here for just a second here. And I'm going to pull up clip 2 on here. And transition it for you so you can hear it.
Or anyone who believes in the Greek will say, well, you got to explain Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. That's a go-to. It's an automatic. It's understandable. Let us create man in our image. Now the Jews, Israel, will say he is addressing the angels. And the Christian or the Messianic will say, nonsense. No. Sorry, Jew. No, he's not speaking to the angels. He's speaking to his divine Son. You just don't want to see it. And we say, okay, well, what does the next verse say? Let's see who created. Verse 27, the next verse, what does it say? Again, don't believe me. Open your Bible and read verse 27. What it says there very clearly. So God, Elohim, created man in his image. Notice the singular. In his image. In the image of God, he created him.
Okay, I'm going to move us back to the PowerPoint. I was asked by Jesse Camping, who is this guy? Do you know the one thing he doesn't do? He never introduces himself. Isn't that kind of funny? But no, he doesn't really introduce himself. I'm going to shrink me down a little bit so you can see this a little better, like this. And I'm going to transition this. Okay, now what he's doing here is he's reacting to the argument that we use so often that the plural is used. Let us make man in our image. And he's going to the next verse and he's making an argument. Now, there are two possible claims with this argument. Here's where you're going to get to learn some real Hebrew tonight, which is really exciting. One of these possible claims is that the singular third-person form of a Hebrew verb includes only a singular person. In other words, him and his have to refer to only a singular person. And so Jesus can't be God. And I'll show you which verses he's reacting to. Um, but he's kind of, I'll show you which verses he's reacting to, but he's essentially arguing that one person can only be there. And so I want to teach you a little Hebrew tonight. Okay, and you don't have to actually know how to read the Hebrew, but you're going to learn some Hebrew grammar here, and you're going to learn a false claim. This is used sometimes in Islam. It's used by other groups that deny the Trinity. So he jumped the verse, didn't deal with the let us make, which the rabbis tried to by saying it's the angels, and then he jumps to the next verse, and he made man in his image and says, well, he only refers to one person always in the Hebrew. It's third person singular. Remember, he says it's singular, and he makes a big deal out of that. And so, let's look at the Hebrew here. Now, I have a sentence here. Okay? Now, I'm looking at the actual sentence he is, and he, God, made man in his image. Okay? And see, that's the one possibility that he's using. And see those little idea balloons? That's a third person singular. In the case of the first, it's a third person singular form of the verb. In the case of image, that's actually a noun, and you have a third person singular suffix or ending put to it, okay? And one possible claim is that, well, we can only understand that as one person. There's another possible claim he could be making. Another possible claim is that when the possessive is used, okay, and he, God, made man in his image, his is possessive, and so maybe it's just when you're using possessives, it's not really the third person singular, but it's the possessive third person singular that is the problem here. Does the singular third person always indicate a single person? Now let's look at Amos 5:2 for a minute, and let's get some look at Hebrew grammar here. Okay? And this is the cool thing you can do with Canvas, okay? So you have basically Amos 5:2. Now you're going to notice that some of it's darkened, right? Now that's the subject of the sentence. And before that subject, you have a verb. Okay? Now, an interesting thing that often happens in Hebrew is that the sentence order is often verb, subject, object. We always put the subject first in English. Hebrew doesn't do that. In fact, it usually, and there are cases where it doesn't for very good reason, starts the subject with the verb. So after the sentence, where you have a basic phrase, a negation, upon or towards, not upon her land or not towards her land, she will rise. Okay? What you have there is the verb. So you have a phrase and then the verb and then the subject. That's what's dark. Now that is the Virgin of Israel. See that? That's what that phrase means, the Virgin of Israel. Now I want you to see that she will rise, although it's negated, okay, by the first word of the sentence, is in the third person singular. Okay? And the verb after is also in the third person singular. But what is the subject of the sentence? The Virgin of Israel. Now, in Amos 5:2, are you really going to tell me that the Virgin of Israel, which is reference to Israel as a whole nation, is a single person? That there was someone named the Virgin of Israel in Amos 5:2 that the prophet is referring to, that this refers to? And the answer is no. This is a corporate subject. So we have a corporate subject that is a group being referred to in the third person singular. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, that means that if God has three persons which corporately are God, one God, three persons, there is no reason in Hebrew why the third person singular could not be used. In other words, the argument fails. Okay? Now, I put another text up here. This is a really, really good text to go ahead and use. I'm sorry if it's a little small. This is Jeremiah 23:6. Let me read it to you. In those days, Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell safely, and this is the name by which she will be called. I'm sorry, I have to be careful. It's not, it's the corresponding. Jeremiah 33:6 has another verse. I'm sorry, 23:6 has another verse in 33:16. Judah will be saved and Jerusalem will dwell safely, and this is the name by which she will be called. That's a bad translation. We've dealt with that before. I don't like it. The idea of the verse is that she will share the name of Messiah. Okay? But let me point out the thing that I want to point out here. Do you see the blue arrow? And I'm going to try to really expand this. In fact, I'm going to make it full screen for you because I really want you to see that blue arrow. Okay, so I'm going to go to full PowerPoint and I'm going to go ahead and expand this up a little bit just so that you can see it. And hopefully that's a little better and you can see the blue arrow. The blue arrow is a third person singular suffix. Okay, now I know that's a little technical, but it's adding the word she. Just think of it as the word she. Who's she, though? Jerusalem and Judea are she. Are Jerusalem and Judea just one person? No. Again, we have another case where the third person singular, she or he, there is no real neuter in Hebrew, is used of a group. So again, if God is one God with three persons, okay, then he's corporeally God. And so there's the slide for you a little bit. It'll take a second or two. And hopefully you'll be able to see it a little bit better. But the point is the argument that Jesus can't be God because there can only be one person and he made God in his image must refer to one person is not sound from a Hebrew standpoint. And that's what I'm getting at here. Okay, it's not sound from a Hebrew standpoint. And so that argument fails. So the let us make man in our image is not negated by he made man in his image in the next verse in Genesis. This is like a really bad Hebrew argument. Okay? So that's kind of where I'm going with that. Now, why does he jump on this so much? I mean, what is the man's problem? Well, let me bring you back to the PowerPoint and me, okay? Gerald asked whether Toby Singer ever addresses Genesis 18. I've not viewed all of his videos to tell you that. That's an interesting question. And let me ponder that a little bit. And let me just kind of deal with why he's so big on this. Okay, where is the problem? Because of the word one. Okay, Jesus is claiming deity. Okay, I and the Father are one. And what he's saying is essentially, if you read God's word, and he's just pulling this verse out of context, and then he's pulling another verse out of context, and then he's saying, see how they disagree with each other? I and the Father are one. Then Jews took up stones to stone him, John 10:30 and 31. I and the Father are one, ego kai ho pater en es chesmen. I think that's a hard breathing. I sometimes have trouble. Esmen. Okay? Um, Now, one of the interesting things about A.T. Robinson is he points out that the word hen or one, it is hard breathing. Hen, not N. Uh, okay, R, one, didn't see the hard breathing. Is neuter, not masculine. It's not haste, it's hen. Not one person, one essence or nature. So again, Jesus is not claiming to be a separate deity, but this is what really kind of torques his court. What he's trying to do is say, look, what Jesus claims for himself is totally contrary to what the Hebrew allows. Okay? And that's what he's getting at. Now what I did is now instead of going to 33, I went to Jeremiah 23:6. We've done this before. Messiah is called God. Okay? Is Jesus claiming anything the prophets don't allow him to? Well, in the Hebrew, he's not claiming anything the prophets don't allow him to. Now, admittedly, in the next part of his video, he may question whether Jeremiah is as 23:6 is a messianic prophecy, and we'll have to look at that. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and go to clip 3 real quick here and let you listen to that, and then we'll deal with
or anyone who believes in the Greek will say, well, you got to explain Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. That's a go-to. It's an automatic. It's understandable.
Actually, I won't. Let's deal with I and the Father are one. One of the key things that he would like to do, and a lot of people would like to do, is they go to the Deuteronomy 6:4 passage. I'm sorry, he's kind of invading for a split second here. We'll be through with him in a second. They're going to go to the Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. God, Jesus is claiming to be one with the Father. One has to mean only one person. This is such an easy argument to defeat. Okay? You need to know how to defeat this. This is like 101 in dealing with Jewish objections, and Muslims will use this too. I know Muslims will use it because in a debate with David Wood, the Muslim polemicist went directly to this verse right in his opening statements and said even the Jews do not believe this. Okay? And so they immediately run to this. He called it the Shema, which, by the way, is terrible pronunciation. It's the Shema. Steve Randolph's asking whether Echad is one in unity. Let me take that in just a second. Let me just show you a quick textual way of dealing with this. Okay? Juxtaposition Deuteronomy 6:4 with Genesis 1:24, and the two shall become one flesh. Okay? V'chayu v'besher echad. I believe that's the way that's written. Okay? V'chayu libesher. Live. Sorry about that. I'm trying to read this writing, and it's a little hard. Liva shar echad. Become one flesh. From haya, and then two, one flesh. Okay? What I'm doing here is the same word echad is used in both. Okay, so I'm just I kind of get the need to get the text a little larger with the vowel pointing sometimes. Livashar. Livashar. There we go. Because the vowel pointing's a little small in my text. Here's the thing you need to know. Do the husband and wife really become one person? Okay. Is that really what happens here? By the way, when I get the new program, we will not have the problem with the spacing and stuff for the most part. Things will end up kind of allowing me to be over something in such a way that I won't have that problem. So if I do get the new program and it does work out, that'd be great. The proof text is juxtaposition Deuteronomy with Genesis 1:24. The two obviously don't become one person, so one there does not necessarily have to indicate one entity. It can indicate a composite one or a unity. That's what Steve Randolph's getting at. Okay, and a shout out to Steve. That's really good. You just have to be a little careful. My Hebrew professor, Professor Glazer, took us to task because echad does not always mean one in unity. There are a few uses where it's used more generally, just in terms of numerically one. Okay? Here's what you do need to know, though. The first day of the week is not called Yom Echad. It's called Yom Rishon. And so you need to be a little careful in making a general claim. You're better juxtapositioning the two verses here and simply saying, well, it can't always mean a single one. And since it can't always mean a single one, you can't rule it out. Do you see what I'm getting at here? And that's what I'm really kind of pushing for. Okay, we went through those slides, so I don't want to go through them again. Let's look at clip 3.
Or anyone who believes in the Greek will say, well, you got to explain Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. That's a go-to. It's an automatic. It's understandable. Let us create man in our image. Now the Jews, Israel, will say he is addressing the angels. And the Christian or the Messianic will say nonsense.
Okay, we're having some trouble with 3. So I'm just going to move on. Okay. The high priestly prayer is an area where people don't much like it. Okay. And so I'm kind of hoping that I can pull stuff. Again, it was very hard to pull stuff from his video. And so I'm sorry about any conflicts or problems here. I won't have to do that in the future. Possibly. I possibly will be able to stick the video in and then still it and maybe move between scenes, which would be nice. Right now I'm trying to use software to do that. The point, the glory in 17:2. Let's just understand what's going on here. Jesus is talking about his pre-existence. He's not talking about sharing God's glory as some created being. Now, he doesn't like the Trinity, and so he ignores it. Too bad, so sad. You can't ignore it. It's the juxtaposition of the issue. Okay? And so we got these slides over again. 44:6. And I don't know why. Let's start thinking about dealing with Malachi and sort of start looking at what we've got here with Malachi. Now he's going to spend some time, so I'm going to put the 4th clip up. It's going to deal directly with Malachi. So you should see that come up there. We're just going to leave that up there for a second while I get that clip ready. And we're going to go to this 4th clip. All right. And I'm going to go, and he's going to camp out on Malachi.
Or anyone who believes in the Greek will say, well, you got to explain Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. That's a go-to. It's an automatic. It's understandable. Let us
I don't
create.
I don't know what's going on with that fourth clip. So I'm going to try um, I'm going to just read you Malachi and go to it. Um, and I'm going to bring Malachi up in Logos and create, I think what will work here is to go ahead and create a Logos thing. So I'm going to pull Logos up and pull up the verse. And I'm going to tell you what he says and just basically deal with it. Because that clip is not working. Some of these clips are just not working tonight. And I'm sorry about that. It would be nice just to be able to drop them in. You may have seen a clip playing, but it sounds like it's repeating a previous clip. And so I'm a little disappointed in that. I'm bringing Logos up so that I can go ahead and do this. And I'm going to go into Malachi. And I believe it should be Malachi 3:1. It's going to take a second for Malachi to come up here because I'm pulling a lot of resources with Logos. Um, it seems like the clips are repeating the same clips, which is not making me a happy camper. So I'm going to pull Logos up here, okay? And I'm going to get this kind of set up for you. Make sure that Window Capture 2's properties are good, okay? Because one of the instabilities is sometimes that this happens, okay? And I'm going to go into Malachi for you and go over the verse. And I'm really kind of hoping the new program will give me some abilities here to play with this a little bit more. So I'm going to do something, going to learn a little bit about Logos if this works correctly. Okay, this is a go-to, and you type go-to in the command box. Okay, and I'm going to type go to Malachi 3, and that's what you would do in Logos. So welcome to your Logos training here this evening. It's incredible software. I'm going to put that up here and transition, and you can see that I typed in go to Logos to Malachi 3. That's what you would do in Logos, and then you would hit the go to button. And then if you have a lot of stuff running, Logos will figure out what to do with its life. Which is what it's deciding to do this evening. And it should go to Malachi 3 um, if it can pull everything it needs to pull. And when it does that, we'll be able to go to the exact verse. You may also see some fluctuation. Logos also has a new feature to it. And it just doesn't want to cooperate tonight, does it? Because it's showing me little help cards, which I don't need right now, thank you, that are just taking up more RAM. It'd be nice if it would go to it. Now, if this doesn't work, then I will just have to give you the verse. But I'd really like you to look at it and see what's going on in the grammar here. Both the Hebrew and English will come up, so you'll actually have that. There we go. Whoa. Okay, there we go. Preferred Bible. My preferred Bible is linked both my Hebrew and English. And so that's really neat. You can do that in Logos. You can have different translations so that my single Bible is linked both to my Greek and my Hebrew. So that's just a little bit of a Logos background. This is a new thing Logos does, so that when I open my Old Testament, it automatically opens the Hebrew Masoretic text with the English, and when I open my Greek, it opens my Nestle Allen Greek Bible. I do so kind of hate when the technology decides to do stuff with me. Um, I'm going to get rid of snaz here, and hopefully that'll free up some RAM. Okay. You're still looking at Logos. It's still trying to get its brain together. Really only needs to do one thing. But there it is. Excellent. I'm going to close down this extra window for you. Okay. And I can expand this out so you can see the Greek and Hebrew better. So I'm going to expand this out. There we go. And then I'm going to try to, there we go. It still doesn't like fully getting it together. There we go. Um, and what you can do in Logos is you can expand it. Now, what Logos is trying to do is translate every word for me, which I really don't need this evening. So that's problematic. It's not really a problem with Logos. It's that I'm pulling a lot of resources. Computer's a little older, and so I kind of have to work with it a little. And Logos sometimes is like low on the list. Okay, whoa. Okay. And I'm trying to get to where Malachi is going to go ahead and talk about Israel's treatment of their wives. And that's why I'm trying to expand this out a little bit here, because it tends to keep Logos from focusing on individual Hebrew words. I'm able to move through the text a little better. But it still kind of wants to do that tonight. And we may just have to go ahead and I may have to talk to you about what's going on here. But I really would like you to see the grammar. There we go. Now, if we are lucky here, we can get it. And it might be that I'm not getting what I should be getting here. Let me fix this. And I went to Malachi. This is really not being helpful tonight. So let's go there. And I'm going to try to go here and see if I can get this to line up. I just kind of wish this was responding a little bit better tonight than it is. Okay. And it just doesn't seem to be. And it just is not doing what I want it to do. And I think I know why. Okay. And there we go. I've got it. Give it a second here. Logos is finally responding a little bit more the way I'd like. I don't know if you can see it as well as I'd like you to see it. Okay, but we're in Malachi. The charge has to do with treachery against one's wife. Do you see it? There you go. Now he's going to camp on this. Malachi 2:10. Has not one Father made us? Has not one God created us? See, there's one God. Jesus says, I and the Father are one. So here's the Greek Jesus, I and the Father are one. Here's the Hebrew Scriptures, has not one Father, do we not all have one Father? Has not one God created us? See, here's the Greek Jesus versus God. And that's what he's going to go to. Now, I'm going to kind of try and highlight this. Man, this would be so nice if this actually works for you so you can see this. Okay? V'lo av echad lichulanu halo halo el echad bira'anu. Here it is. Now, I don't know if this shows, okay? But I have it highlighted. This is called sympathetic highlighting in the Hebrew. You see the first two words there on the first two lines. 10 is divided into two lines. It's Hebrew poetry. This is parallelism. Has not. Okay, it's based on the word for not, but it's in interrogative form. Has not one Father made us? Now, if you go down to the other verse and you look after that first word, has not one God. See, those two are parallel. Has not one Father. Okay, the first three words, has not one God. Okay, are the other. Now, this is not Malachi referring to God the Father out of the Trinity. Father is parallel to God there. This is the creational fatherhood of God. Okay? The key is, has not one God created us? Well, Jesus isn't claiming to be another God. The word one there is not in reference to person, it's in reference to gods. That's the context. So he makes this clever sounding argument, well, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. See, one. Has not one Father do we not all have one Father creationally? God is the Father of all of creation and of humankind. Has not one God made us? Here's the Greek Jesus, I and the Father one. Here's the Hebrew Scriptures. Here's the problem. Jesus is not claiming to be a separate God. And so his argument fails because he is inferring something in Jesus' words that Jesus is not saying. Jesus is not saying he is a separate God. When he says, I and the Father are one, he's talking about sharing the Father's essence as deity. And so that's not the point at all. And so that's like his fourth thing. So I'm thrilled for the new subscribers. I hope they get something out of this. I'm sorry about the glitches. That's the point of possibly using this new program. So I hope this all works out. Unlike David Wood, the PC version of the program's a little bit more expensive, and that's where, you know, if you are a Patreon supporter, that's where some of the Patreon's money is going to improve these broadcasts. If you're a Chosen People supporter, your money goes to support us, but Chosen People doesn't pay for my software. So it's just the way it is. I've got to kind of take care of that. Okay. Just looking through here. Live broadcast tomorrow, hopefully using a test drive version of the software. We're working to make this better. If there are new folks who see these later, thank you so much for subscribing. Um, and I see one of them. I think. I'm just looking at the comments here. The one thing I may not be able to do that Dave can with the new software is he can just drop your comments right on the screen and then deal with them. I wish I could do that. Um, so that's kind of where we're going. I am so excited for the new subscribers, and I hope our legion, our numbers grow. But it's really good to have the little boost. It was great that David Wood was willing to invite me on the show. I really appreciate that. Um, I have felt some of the kickback that he has felt, and believe me, Vocab was doing a great job of being a linebacker and protecting some of the stuff that was going on. The day will come maybe when we have a less, you know. Um, by the way, someone was interested in being a moderator, and someone had stepped up to the plate. I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge that. I wasn't quite sure how that all works, but I'd like to look into that. So if someone wants to take that upon themselves and they're regulars, I would be terribly interested in making that work because I'm hoping to see our numbers kind of grow. Um, I will be on tomorrow. Do realize that next week is Christmas and Christmas Eve. I'll talk to you more about that, um, and how we're going to work around that. And then, hey, we're into 2020 with our next broadcasts. Uh, and also, I'll be changing one of the Patreon rewards. And so I hope to have that as something else. By the way, if you have suggestions, leave me a message on Patreon. Oh, Roxby, excellent. I would be glad to do that. I'll be in touch with Vocab. He's pretty crazy busy because Dave Wood was visiting and having people over the house, and they were doing broadcasts. And so, um, but I will be checking on that. So thanks to Roxby. Roxby says that Vocab can show me how. I'm having to learn so much so quick. Um, well, I am glad. Steve Rudolph was pointing out that Nehemiah Gordon, who by the way is Karaites, pronounces it as a vav and not as a wow. I've heard it called, and shows why. I am grateful to Nehemiah Gordon for doing that because I really hate the wow consecutive. Let me share with you a funny thing my daughter did. She was confronted with this because some guys that she ran into did the wow sound, the W sound, and and the Hebrew for David is David, and she said she refuses to call King David the weed. So have a good laugh at that one. Um, and Nate, I am terribly interested uh, in having you do that moderatorship. So I will end up um, learning a little bit more about that. Uh, hey guys, we try to test run the different program tomorrow. I'm really hoping it'll make it a little more intuitive. OBS is great, but it's a little technical and it's a little clunky, and I want to kind of put effects up and do more. So I am thrilled that you guys are all with me. I'm sorry about the glitches tonight, but I wanted you to go ahead and hear this guy, and just the clips were not working. I pulled them out with a program, and just it did not work well. So in the future, I don't know whether I will just clip differently or do something differently. Maybe use a different program to clip it. So, well, it looks like some people need to run to another program. I hope this one really, some of the other ones have really caught traction. I hope this one kind of does catch a little traction. It was good dealing with the Karaite. I probably will go back and do the second part of his video because I want to hear which messianic prophecies he wants to go ahead and diss. So, I'm going to call it a night. A shout out to everybody. Shout out to Steve. You are just a wonderful blessing to us. And shout out to everybody, you patrons. You patrons are the reason I can consider new software. You patrons are the ones that allow me to get new ministry materials. And I'm hoping to use a little bit of that Patreon money to pay the editor that is working on my dissertation so that I can complete that dissertation uh, with a little bit less stress because we needed an editor. So you guys are great. I'm going to call it a good night. We're over an hour, and someone said they needed to leave for another program, and I'm just thrilled with having you here. So I'm going to do a good night, all, and let's see if the new software works tomorrow. The unveiling. It will not be the full version. Special thank you to Jesse Camping. I am so thrilled with the positive comments, Jesse, and that you've come on board as part of our large enlarging family with the new supporters. It is such a blessing to have you. Nate Roxby, you are always there. Corinth, glad for your questions. Corinth is emailing me things and asking about resources. She keeps me on my toes. If you guys want anything, just email me or message me through Patreon. It's so exciting getting additional material to her. Nate, you are just the man. What can I say? Uh, so I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to let people go. Uh, and Air Church, thank you. So I'm going to say good night, all.